Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. All right. First, there's a disclaimer. I'm not condoning underage drinking in any form of those, any sense of the word. So just keep that in mind. Do it. All right. So first off, beer is a great drink. There are many different types of flavors, all of which deserve a try. Um, the only problem is something that you like could be very hard to find or expensive, and that's not really good for people our age. That's why you should try Zymurgy. Zymurgy is the study of fermentation, or as it most likely has been come to known as or homebrewing. Excuse me. Hopefully, these tips I'm about to give you will help you during the process. I got into this by going to actually a shop here in Manhattan, Kansas, called Brew Brothers Hops and Sprockets. It's a combination store that sells bike parts on one side and brewing supplies on the other. So isn't that great? My main points today will be the setup and sanitation, creating the brew, watching fermentation, and then the bottling and cleanup. All right. So first of all, you need to pick a recipe that's your experience level. The first one I did only had 4 ingredients, and I still ended up making only about a third of what I wanted to because of so many mistakes. You want to make sure you also at least have just the base equipment. The good thing about that is whatever recipe you're using or whatever store you buy stuff from will most likely make sure that you have what you need. When you first gather your ingredient or your supplies, you want to make sure that everything is first free of dirt, and then you want to sanitize literally everything. Anything you're going to be using, touching, whatever, it needs to be sanitized, or you're most likely going to have a problem. So now let's start brewing. All right. So first, when you start boiling your ingredients, that boil usually takes 1 hour. But just to make sure, you want to make sure that everything is converted from the starches that you'll be boiling into the sugars that you'll need for the fermentation. Easy test for that is an iodine solution. When it touches starches, which are things you don't want in there, it'll turn purple. Otherwise, it will stay its normal brown color. After that, you're going to put it in something big like this. It's called a carboy. Once you put in your wort or what you boiled, it's only going to be about 1 gallon, and you're going to want to fill the rest of it up with the coldest water you can get. Don't use ice, though, because that can introduce contamination. On top of that, you'll probably want to give it an ice bath because it's going to be very hot from the beginning. This can take all night, even in the ice bath. According to The Complete Joys of Homebrewing by Charlie Papazian, the optimal temp for introducing the yeast into the fermentation is 68 to 75 degrees, so room temperature, but still that temperature takes almost all day. And then attach your airlock. Now all you got to do is watch and wait once you get that in there. So what you're going to be watching out for are weird colors and smells, and that's not really a good thing. This right here has been going for quite a while. It's in the middle of its fermentation process. You can see this line right here. This is normal. This is a yeast buildup that will happen during the fermentation process. Here is the drink, and then what you want to do is make sure you leave a little bit of extra space at the top just in case it starts bubbling. We had a little mistake here, so it's a little less than normal, but that's fine. So what you want to be watching out for are some type of film along the top that is indicative of some type of growth that's not included in the yeast, or rings around the top where the water level is. Particular smells, the one that's most common is a vinegary smell, and at that point, just to dump it and try again. Most of the time, recipes only take about a week to finish fermentation. I've had my longest take almost a whole month, and anything in between as well. The surefire way to make sure is watching the airlock. Once this airlock stops bubbling, that means it's usually done. Now we can move on to the final step, which is bottling. So just like you did at the beginning, you want to sanitize your bottles and your caps and anything else you're going to be using. You can't just do this at the beginning because you're going to have anywhere from a week to a month between initially starting and bottling. So those bottles can pick up extra stuff along the way. You also want to watch for anything left in the bottles. Any sanitation left in the bottles, because that can stop fermentation for later. Then what you're going to want to do is add priming sugar to your brew after or before you start bottling, and this will restart the fermentation for carbonation. If you don't want to do that because you'll still have a yeast buildup after the fact, you're going to want to use artificial carbonation, which isn't too much harder to work in. After you get those bottled up, you're going to want to clean everything you used for the bottling process, and that includes the fermenter you were using, especially this because after you dump it, it's kind of a sticky mess. You don't want anything else growing in there, especially if you let it sit for a long time. It's going to be harder to clean out when you want to do it again. So instead of waiting or being lazy and waiting, you want to clean it immediately. So then afterwards, all you have to do is wash the dust out and sanitize, and that's a simple process. All right. So after that, all you have to do is either wait for the carbonation and then refrigerate and enjoy. So for my conclusion, we're just going to go over all the steps really quick again. You want to make sure your recipe is easy enough for you as a brewer, so you don't mess it up easily. It's not too hard. Then you want to sanitize everything. You got to make sure everything is clean, free of dirt, grime, whatever. Got to make sure you have all your equipment ready. You want to make sure you have what you need so that you don't get halfway through the process and then you're missing something, and then you just end up dumping it on the floor on accident, which has happened. Once it's boiled, you want to make sure the conversion is complete with an iodine test, or hopefully just by boiling it long enough. Make sure your temp is correct for your yeast, otherwise it could die, and you don't want that. While it's fermenting, watch for signs of contamination. Once the bubbles are done, you're done. It's done fermenting. Make sure you bottle appropriately, use sanitation again. After that, clean everything. That's about it. So with all those pieces in mind, home brewing can be fun, easy, and rewarding. Thank you very much.